Janitor's black son yelled, "Don't get in the car." What the CEO did next shocked the whole company. The glass towers of downtown glimmered under the morning sun. Executives hurried through the plaza, phones pressed to their ears, as a black Mercedes waited at the curb. Alexander Grant, CEO of Grant Global, stepped out of the revolving doors with his entourage trailing. Security scanned the crowd. Executives whispered about the Riverside project, and Edward Kane, vice president, walked with a self-assured smile. Then a single shout cut through the noise. "Do not get in that car." Heads turned. A boy in worn sneakers and a faded hoodie stood at the edge of the crowd. Malik Johnson, 12 years old, his voice trembling but fierce. Denise Johnson, pushing her cleaning cart near the entrance, froze. Her face drained of color. She rushed forward, trying to pull her son away. "Malik, stop! You will get us fired!" Laughter rippled among the executives. Kane smirked. A janitor's child giving security advice? Ridiculous. But Malik did not back down. "I saw them last night. 2 men under your car. One with a scar, the other with a snake tattoo. They were planting something." Grant's stride faltered. He studied the boy's face, then motioned to security. "Check it." Seconds later, a guard's shout echoed. "Bomb!" Chaos erupted. Gasps, cameras snapping, executives stumbling. Back. Grant's eyes locked on Malik. The boy who was invisible just saved his life. The lobby of Grant Global Tower buzzed with whispers after the bomb scare. Executives clustered in uneasy groups, their polished shoes clicking against marble. As security tightened the perimeter, Edward Kane cut through the tension with a sharp voice. "This is absurd. We are wasting valuable time listening to a janitor's child spin fantasies." Malik's small frame looked almost swallowed by the towering lobby, yet his words carried, "Wait. It is not fantasy. I know this building better than your guards. I know when cameras switch angles, when the elevators stall, and when the night staff takes breaks." Denise Johnson stood close, her hands gripping the cleaning cart. "Malik, enough, please." But Malik's mind raced back through countless nights. Flashback, dim hallways glowed under flickering lights. While Denise polished floors and emptied bins, Malik wandered, his eyes sharper than anyone realized. He counted the steps of patrolling guards. He noticed which cameras blinked when someone tampered with them. He listened when executives thought no one was around to hear. Back in the present, Malik lifted his chin. "Last night I heard them. 2 men talking. They said, 'Riverside.' Tonight it ends." The word struck Alexander Grant like a spark. His gaze narrowed. "Riverside?" Kane folded his arms, smirking. "You see? A child parroting nonsense." Denise exhaled slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I do have clearance to closed floors. My keycard can open places your guards do not step." For the first time, Grant looked at Denise not as invisible staff, but as someone holding a key to hidden doors. His attention returned to Malik. The boy's detail, the confidence in his memory. It was too precise to dismiss. Grant's decision cut through Kane's protests. "Show me." Silence fell for a moment. Malik's heart pounded. Denise glanced at her son, torn between fear and pride. Kane scoffed loudly. "You cannot seriously be entertaining this. Elevators are waiting, investors are calling, and you want to follow a janitor's boy into shadows?" But Grant was already walking toward the stairwell. His voice was steady. "If there is even a chance he is right, we cannot ignore it." Malik moved quickly, determination flashing in his eyes. Denise followed, her hands trembling but her resolve hardening. The stairwell echoed with hurried footsteps as Malik led the way down. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting uneven shadows across the concrete walls. Denise followed close, her janitor's keycard clenched tight in her hand, while Alexander Grant kept pace with a mix of urgency and disbelief. They stopped at a locked steel door marked "Restricted Access." Denise swiped her card. The green light clicked, and the heavy door swung open. For years, her presence in these hidden levels had gone unnoticed, her work unseen. Tonight, that invisibility became their key. Inside, the hum of servers filled the room. Towers of blinking lights pulsed like a nervous heartbeat. Malik's eyes darted to the ceiling. There, that camera was turned off at 2:17 a.m. I saw two men standing beneath it. They wiped the logs. Grant motioned to his security tech team, who had rushed down behind him. Fingers flew across keyboards as they began pulling fragments from corrupted files. On the screens, images surfaced, erased video frames, scattered code, partial conversations. Then came numbers, offshore accounts, wire transfers. A pattern began to emerge, each piece more damning than the last. One file stopped Grant cold. His name was listed, not as victim, but as obstacle. The succession plan named Edward Kane as heir to the chief executive office, effective immediately following a transition event. Grant's jaw tightened. He turned slowly, his eyes locking onto Kane, who had followed reluctantly with a mask of irritation. Kane forced a laugh. That sounded more like a warning. This is ridiculous. Digital files can be forged. Anyone desperate enough could manufacture this to frame me. But the energy in the room shifted. Executives who had once stood firmly in Kane's shadow now looked at him with hesitation. The evidence was incomplete, but it was undeniable. In its direction, the seed of doubt had been planted. Denise whispered to her son, "We should not be here. This is too dangerous." But Malik kept his eyes on Grant. His voice was low, steady. "If you want to stop him, you cannot do it in private. He will twist it, erase it, bury it. You have to show everyone at once." Grant studied the boy, weighing the risk. A child was seeing the battlefield clearer than men who had sat in boardrooms for decades. Kane stepped forward, his tone sharp. "Alexander, think carefully. Entertaining this fantasy could ruin your credibility. You trust the word of a janitor's child over mine?" Grant said nothing. His silence was louder than any denial. The servers hummed, screens glowed with fragments of betrayal, and a boy, who was never meant to be noticed, had just placed the company's fate on a razor's edge. The server room emptied slowly, leaving only Grant, Denise, and Malik. Silence pressed down, broken only by the soft hum of machines. Denise's hands shook as she placed her keycard back into her pocket. "We are cleaners, not heroes," she whispered, her voice thick with fear. "We do not belong in the middle of this war." Malik's eyes burned with determination. "If we walk away, he will strike again. Next time it will not be a car. Next time it could be worse." Grant's stare hardened. "Tomorrow is the investor summit. Kane will expect me to stand silently beside him while he claims control. Instead, we will bring the truth to the table." Denise looked from her son to the CEO, torn in two directions. Malik was only 12, yet he spoke with a weight far beyond his years. Her pride fought against her terror. "How do we even do this?" she asked. Malik stepped closer, lowering his voice as if the walls themselves might be listening. "We give him something to watch, a decoy laptop with files he thinks he can erase. But the real evidence stays with me, on my tablet. No one will expect a kid to carry the truth." Grant leaned back, considering the boldness of the plan. It might work. Denise exhaled, her chest tight. "I cannot believe I am agreeing to this." That night, the office lights burned long after midnight. Malik sat at a desk surrounded by stacks of copied files, CCTV clips loaded one by one, each stamped with dates and times. Denise highlighted emails where Kane spoke of Riverside, cloaking embezzlement and sabotage under polished language. Grant's team moved in shifts, scanning, syncing, and securing. Every document was duplicated twice, one for the decoy, one for Malik's hidden drive. But across the city, Kane grew restless. He had seen Grant whispering too often with the janitor's boy. He had caught glimpses of Denise walking with folders she should not have touched, his instincts sharpened like knives. By midnight, Kane was already giving orders to his aides. Watch him. Every step, every call. If he makes one wrong move, I want to know before sunrise. The trap was nearly set, but Kane's suspicion was rising. The ballroom of the Grand Meridian Hotel glittered with gold and glass. Chandeliers threw light across polished marble floors where investors and board members gathered in clusters, their voices low but sharp with expectation. Reporters lined the back wall, cameras primed for the annual summit that promised both wealth and spectacle. At the center stood Victor Kane, dressed in a tailored black suit that reflected power as much as fabric. He moved like a man who had already won. With a practiced smile, he raised his hand and the room stilled. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kane began, his voice smooth as silk. "The Riverside Renewal Project is not just a development. It is the future of this city. Together we are building prosperity, jobs, and legacy." Applause followed, rehearsed and polite. Kane basked in it, nodding as if their approval was his birthright. But near the stage, Grant sat stiffly, waiting for his cue. He had rehearsed his words a dozen times, yet his heart pounded like a drum. Denise watched from the wings, clutching her hands together. And at the far edge, almost invisible, Malik stood with his tablet pressed close to his chest. When Kane ended his speech, Grant rose slowly. He walked to the podium with a measured pace, each step heavier than the last. The crowd expected gratitude, a pledge of loyalty, a signature of support. Grant gripped the sides of the podium, his gaze sweeping across the room. "Before we celebrate this project, there is something you all need to see." A ripple passed through the audience. Kane's jaw tightened. He stepped forward with a laugh that carried just enough charm to hide the blade beneath. "Grant, my friend," Kane said, "the summit is not the place for technical matters. These investors came to see progress, not paperwork." But Grant did not step down. His voice cut through the tension. "This is not paperwork. This is the truth." Kane's smile faltered, replaced by steel. "Sit down." For a moment, the air thickened with silence. Then, unnoticed by most, Malik tapped his screen. The massive displays behind the stage flickered. At first, static. Then, moving images. CCTV footage filled the screens. Black cars parked near Riverside. Men, unloading crates marked with false labels, documents being shredded in midnight offices. The crowd gasped. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing. Murmurs turned into a rising storm of disbelief. Next came the emails. Kane's own words appeared on the screen. Orders to conceal losses, schemes to drive out families, coded instructions to funnel money offshore. Investors turned to each other, voices sharp and fearful. Kane's composure shattered. "This is fake!" he roared, slamming his fist onto the podium. "These files are forged. A child could have made them." Grant faced him calmly. "These were not forged. They were recovered directly from our company servers. Every timestamp, every transfer, every lie is recorded. The truth cannot be erased." Security began moving toward the stage. Kane's voice rose, desperate now. "You think you can destroy me? You think you can undo what I built?" But no one moved to defend him. Not the investors, not the board. The evidence was too clear, too heavy. And yet, as security reached for him, Kane's eyes narrowed, not with defeat, but with calculation. The moment the evidence finished flashing on the giant screens, security moved in. Chairs scraped against marble as investors leaned back in shock, and cameras zoomed closer, hungry for every detail. Victor Kane did not go quietly. He spun toward the guards, shouting, "You fools have no idea who you are dealing with! I built this empire! You cannot erase me with a few stolen files!" His voice cracked under the weight of rage and desperation. The guards closed in, gripping his arms as he thrashed and cursed. His expensive suit twisted, his polished mask falling away in front of the entire crowd. For the first time, the great Victor Kane looked small. At the edge of the stage, Malik stood frozen, his tablet clutched tightly against his chest like a shield. His eyes were wide, but he did not move. He had seen danger before, but nothing like this. Denise pushed through the crowd to reach him. She pulled him close, her hand resting firmly on his shoulder. Her voice trembled, but her words were steady. "You did well, baby. You stood your ground." Pride shone through her fear. Grant stepped forward as the press swarmed, microphones thrust forward, camera flashes sparking like lightning. He raised his voice so the room could hear. "This boy saved my life. He saved this company. Remember his name, Malik Johnson." The crowd erupted. Questions flew in every direction, reporters shouting over one another. Cameras turned toward Malik and Denise, capturing the moment they had never asked for but could not avoid. Malik lowered his eyes, uneasy with the attention. He was not thinking about applause or headlines. He was thinking about the shadows Kane had left behind, the men with scars, the deals whispered in dark corners. Kane had been dragged away, but Malik knew the game was not finished. As Kane was shoved through the ballroom doors in handcuffs, his voice echoed back one final warning. "This is not over. You will regret crossing me." The words hung heavy in the air. Denise held Malik tighter, her heart torn between pride and dread. Grant placed a hand on her arm, a rare softness in his eyes. "You are not alone anymore. Whatever comes, we face it together." The flashes continued, the headlines wrote themselves, and history seemed to change in that single hour. 6 months passed, and the storm that once shook Grant Global had begun to settle. Victor Kane was locked away in prison, stripped of his power, his name now a symbol of greed and betrayal. The Riverside Project, once whispered as his crown jewel, was cancelled before it could harm the city. The empire he had tried to build in the shadows had crumbled under the light of truth. Inside the Grant Global Tower, change was no longer a promise, but a reality. Transparency became the foundation of every decision. Hiring was no longer about polished resumes and old money connections. For the first time, cleaners, assistants, and staff at every level felt seen. Their voices mattered in meetings. Their ideas shaped the future of the company. Denise Johnson, once just another janitor moving quietly through the halls, was no longer invisible. Grant promoted her to head of building operations, a role where her years of dedication and knowledge finally received the respect they deserved. She walked the halls with authority, carrying her ID badge with pride, no longer hiding her face in the shadows. Malik, the boy no one had noticed, had found his place too. He began working with Grant's tech team, his sharp memory and curious mind now guiding the very systems that protected the tower. Security guards who once ignored him now leaned in to hear his insights. He was not a child playing at knowledge. Anymore, he was a trusted consultant, respected for what he had proven. But Malik's dreams did not stop with the tower. He carried with him the memory of nights spent walking beside his mother, cleaning floors while the world looked away. He remembered what it felt like to be unseen. With Grant's support, he launched a small foundation dedicated to children, from working-class families, kids who had potential but lacked opportunity. The foundation offered scholarships, mentorship, and access to technology. Malik wanted others like him to be heard before it was too late. The tower itself felt different. Now, the lobby that once held whispers of dismissal now carried the weight of change. When Malik and Denise walked through its glass doors, staff greeted them with respect. Reporters no longer chased them for a headline. Instead, the employees of Grant Global looked to them as proof that the company had truly transformed. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, Denise and Malik walked side by side down the polished corridor. Their reflections stretched across the glass walls, no longer shadows passing unseen. They were voices that mattered, symbols of what had been fought for and won. Grant watched from a distance, a faint smile crossing his face. He knew the company's survival had not come from wealth or influence, but from the courage of a boy who refused to stay silent, and a mother who gave him the strength to speak. As Malik paused at the lobby doors, he looked back one last time. His eyes carried the same fire from that first morning when he had shouted a warning no one believed. But now, the world had learned to listen. The story closed not with silence, but with a truth that echoed beyond the tower. Sometimes, the people the world overlooks are the ones who hold the power to change it.